So I'm here today to talk to you about metrics, budgets, LTVs, options for financing, and kind of how to put it all together. But first, let me spend a few moments just talking about what we do at Pollen Velocity Capital. Well, we provide an alternative source of growth capital to developers by allowing them to unlock the revenues that they have accumulated either in the app stores or through ad networks. And this allows them to accelerate their growth, get the necessary cash to fund their operations, as well as, we help developers with some UI advice in addition to some financial modeling. So let me describe the problem that a lot of the developers, actually all of the developers face. And this problem is that your money that you have earned are, for a certain period of time, are trapped in the app ecosystem. So as you can see right here, if you launch a game, in this case, on day one, let's say it will be 1st of January, and in certain cases, you would have to wait for 60+ days to get paid, to receive your first payment. And in the fast-moving world of mobile economy, that could create certain complications. So what we have done, we have collected a lot of feedback from our experience in working with a number of developers as well as other players in the industry. And we outlined some steps. And to just a caveat here that the steps are not chronological. There are various suggestions. It's not a straightforward path. But let me go ahead and start with the first one. It's a bit of a London thing here. So first thing that we advise is for developers to realize whether they have a funding gap and how are they dealing with it, right? If you are stuck in this cycle of spending money for marketing and then having to wait for a month or so, then it's and not being able to optimize this, it's clearly that you are facing this issue. And what are the solutions that you're taking? Are you maxing out your credit cards? Are you going to your investors and ask for additional equity, or are you finding other ways? Are these options optimized or not? These are the questions you need to ask yourself as a first step. And if there is a problem, we continue to the next point. Next point is going a bit way in the past. So it's what we have discovered that a lot of very successful developers that we work with have aligned their design, the game design, with their budgeting. So they're not only focusing on the product itself, but they're thinking about how their monetization schemes in their games would deliver the funds and when would they deliver, and even and how much, approximation, of course, but it does help them see what their expectations are and what's the reality. It's also good for you to build those benchmarks, so when you go to investors or somebody else or the platforms, you can show them, hey guys, here's what I planned, here's what I achieved, and it gives you credibility. Step number 3, we'll go a little bit more over that a little bit later, but it's basically know your metrics, know your LTVs, think about the factors that are affecting them, track your cohorts, track your funnels, and obviously there's a case for a lot of optimization here. I believe there are many tools available right now that if you're using third-party providers to help you track this, you can do it internally as well. And it's best case, I think, if you build your internal models and track your cohorts yourself, calculate the LTV yourself, so you get a better knowledge of that. Continuing. So when you are ready to and launched, and you have various types of monetization, basically, and also the platforms that pay you. So you have the app stores. You say you launched on 3 of them. Then you have the ad networks as well. So they all have different cycles. They all pay you at a different time. So what's very important is for you to build a budget that overlays all of those payment cycles, and you can see how much money coming in and when. Well, basically, obviously, you can do some projections as well, but it's very important for you to know that. Because what happens later, and I'll go over that, is the optimization. How can you optimize those cash flows? So without you knowing when those payments are coming in, it won't be possible for you to do any optimization. And then, I guess, one of the hardest steps to achieve is to do the marketing right. So now you know all those things in terms of the revenue you're going to be raising approximately. You overlaid your payments and so on, but now you need to optimize your costs, how to do your marketing in the most effective way. Obviously, this is critical. And at the end of my presentation, I'll show you a few examples from, for some of our clients that are working with us, about how important is for you to know your metrics, know whether you're ROI positive, and know that you're doing your marketing right. Because in the end, the reality is that you need some sort of a paid UA to succeed. So I'm not saying just a typical, install buying. You can go to influencers, you can go to other sources, but you have to spend money to be successful and to grow and to scale. But how do you finance that growth is the question. So how we perceive this at Pollen is that step 6 is we see the revenue that you have already made as your advantage. Is the untapped asset that you have that can be used for your growth. Because accounting for a few things that I'll mention shortly. But basically, unlocking the value of your earnings is key here. And I'll go over some of the benefits for both developers and investors. And so that's how you can, I guess, pitch it to your investors, or if you're an investor, you can suggest it to your developers. But basically, what the 3 main advantages of using your revenues early is, first, you can do more at the earlier stage. Just like I mentioned in the earlier slide where you have 60-day wait, you can do so much more with your money, especially early on, at the early stage. You keep control of your business, so you don't need to necessarily to give away too much of your equity to raise additional funds, or go and take a loan that will put some restrictions on how you can operate your business. And finally, if you're thinking about self-publishing, having fluid access to your cash flows can be one of the components to self-publishing success. We personally at Pollen worked with a lot of guys who previously had experience with publishers, some great, some not so great, but they decided to self-publish, and they use our services as a catalyst for their growth. On the investor side, well, there again, the 3 main points are the small businesses typically fail not because of bad product, but because they either mismanage their cash flows or they don't receive their cash flows in time. And so I think having this access is critical. It makes the ecosystem healthier. It adds additional liquidity. And then also, if you're thinking not just about your product, but you also think about how to optimize your capital efficiency, then you'll perform better. And the investors' portfolio companies will perform better. We work with a number of venture capital firms who suggest our services to the companies that are thinking about using paid marketing to grow, because many of them would not advance money for UA. They will advance money to develop a product, but not necessarily for marketing. And finally, if you're an investor, you don't experience additional dilution or revenue share that will decrease the value of your companies. Now, and then the final step, kind of to wrap this up, is now you have collected all the metrics. Now you know what the payments are. Now you know your LTVs. Now it's time to do the optimization. So we have built a simple tool that's available on our website that helps developers just to visualize the various scenarios based on their internal metrics, such as retention and ARPDAUs, CPIs, to see what will happen if they use our services or use like any services that allow them to take money out early or reinvest those money profitably versus just waiting for the app stores to pay you. And if you're interested, you can go to that site on the bottom. It says calculator.pollen.vc to test this tool. It has been released about a month ago and has received quite a good feedback. So hopefully you'll find it useful for yourself. And just wanted to wrap up my presentation is when you should use factoring and what I describe when you take your money, when you take your money early for and allow other parties to get paid by the, let's say, Apple or Iron Source or somebody else later. It's the definition of this is factoring. So at the very core, what we do very advanced tech-enabled factoring. But my point is, well, who should use factoring? And it's extremely simple. It's like the question is the same question you ask yourself when you start doing paid marketing. Is it profitable or not? And just want to give you this example. I know there are a lot of charts, a lot of numbers, but here we have a first scenario when it makes sense to use factoring. So we have a company that, is there a laser? No lasers. Okay, no lasers. So we have a company that has a pretty good retention, as you can see right there, on the paid and organic side. Good ARPDAUs of 25, 20 cents, CPI of $2, an initial marketing budget of 10K. I mean, that's, like, it's somewhat similar to some customers we work with. And there is also additional organic uplift of about 50%. So this company has, their LTV is $3 for the paid, 1.3 for the organic. So in this case, it's obviously profitable. You put $2 in, you get $3 out, plus you have some organic uplift based on that. So as you can see right here on that chart on the bottom, with the regular scenario where you wait for your money to be paid by the app stores, you're making $72,000 by the end of the year. If you take this money and reinvest them each time, like say for instance, we do allow developers to take money each week. So if you do reinvestment each week, it's obviously you accumulate more total return. And so, and I can go into more details on that if you have any follow-up questions, but basically you're doubling your money. And your fee for that we perceive as more of a revenue share, it's 5%. So in order for you to get 156,000, you pay a company like ours or somebody else, if you can find, you paid 8,000, but you double your revenue. Now, obviously, in the case of your CPI going up by $2, it doesn't make sense, right? You basically end up at the same point as if you were to wait. You just paid us not that much, only $800, but you get to the same point of 16,000, which is, that doesn't make sense. So you obviously need to track a lot of things. You need to know your internal metrics. You need to follow this like day by day, and because again, if you access your money early, it's in a way. Well, you take a short loan, right? You take a short loan, you pay money on that. Doesn't make sense to take this money if you don't create value with this money. And I just kind of want to wrap up with my presentation with an example of a recent client that joined us at the end of the year. So what you see here is this is an indie developer. Just had a single like one main app, right? He has many like side apps, but one main app. It's not a game per se, but it's an app. Let's just put it like this. Don't want to disclose too much information. So the guy before joining us was not investing in any paid marketing. It was just organic only, and he was making about $10 a day. Then around Christmas, because his app has to do with health, around Christmas, he went on Facebook and started like seeing if he can buy users on the cheap. His app, just to add an additional point here, is premium. So he was looking at the ways he can do something about his marketing, and he found that he can buy users for $1. His app is 5. So, I mean, what would you do if you find something like that, right? You'll just use all of your money you can to buy those users, because you're making 400%, right? So this guy maxed out his credit cards. He used all of his money he had at the moment, right? But then he's out of money. He still can buy users cheap, but he doesn't have money. So he came to us before New Year's, and he's like, okay, everybody would want to use this app because everybody wants to be healthy after New Year's, right? With all the resolutions and everything in mind. So he comes to us, takes this money out that he already made, but he not received, because he will be receiving them sometime in February. He reinvests those money, and as you can see right here, those spikes are when he gets the money from us and reinvests them. So from $200, he went to 60,000 in 1 month. And he keeps on growing, right? Because he's thinking about, okay, so now I have to look for additional avenues, for additional marketing, so how can I do it? So he super excited about this model for himself, right? That's one of the many examples, so obviously I can go into various types of situations. You can have free-to-play, you can have subscription. It works for each one, but the key here is that you need to do it profitably and to be successful. So that pretty much wraps up my presentation. Feel free to contact me at the email Denis@Pollen.VC, and try our calculator, check out our Twitter feed, and if there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Denis. Thank you.